All right, so today we're gonna focus on hand, wrist, and forearm mobility. All you need for today is a lacrosse ball. We're going to do a series of 4 movements done in sequence, repeating that up to 3 or 4 times, depending what you need. So we're gonna start with the palm. We're gonna use the lacrosse ball to do some trigger point release in the palm. Then we're going to work through wrist range of motion. Then we're going to do a fascial release on the lower wrist. And after that, we will do a trigger point release on the extensors of the forearm. So let's get started. We're going to start with the ball on a desk, solid surface. It's going to also be done on the floor, whatever is best for you. So we're going to get the lacrosse ball set in the low part of our palm. We could think about this like being the heel of our hand. So we're putting some weight into the ball, creating this sort of trigger point and finding some of those nasty spots in the palm and looking to release some of that. And now some spots, especially closer to the thumb, are going to be more intense because we use that opposable thumb, humans, more often, and it is a very big and strong muscle in the hand. So we want to just spend some time in there, dig around. Maybe it's more in the palm for you or closer to the fingers, but we can almost think about this like how we release the fascia in the bottom of our foot. Let's switch sides, do the same thing on the other palm. So fingers are down on the table, and I'm moving my wrist or the heel of my hand back and forth, trying to find those trigger points in the hand and spending just a little bit of time on them or a little bit of breath on them, right? A couple breaths in these more intense spots and just exploring around, find it. So we're spending about 30 to 60 seconds. If you need a little bit longer, right, we'll have an opportunity to come back to that in the second round. But for now, just spend some time, dig around. If you even need to pause the video, spend a little bit of extra time, but don't worry, we'll get back to this. So let's give that a little bit of a break. We can just put that off to the side for now. Next is going to be wrist range of motion. So we're going to start, really spread the fingers out. We're going to place our palms down on the bench, keep our shoulders down and out of the ears, and we're going to lean out over our desk or table or floor and shift back. We're going to do that 6 times, and we're trying to improve that range of motion in the wrist when the palm is open. So we can think about this as good prep for planking, for push-ups, for front squats, any of those movements that require a wrist position that looks very similar to this. Second thing, we're going to turn the fingers back to face you on both hands. Same idea, we want to keep the shoulders down and out of the ears. And now we're going to rock away from the bench or away from the table or the floor or the bench if you're on a bench, and just nice and controlled, try to go into more and more range in that wrist. Now we should feel a little bit more in the forearm as a stretch. If you're feeling a lot of intensity in the wrist here, just grade it or gradate the movement enough that is challenging, but not that is causing pain, okay? Good, once we've done 6, we're gonna point the fingers forward again. And now we're going to make some circles with the shoulders. So we're going to go out to the left, leaning forward, to the right, leaning back. So we'll do that 3 times in each direction. Now just taking the wrist through just some different ranges. We're exploring these different positions for the wrist that we may see in our workout. And let's go the opposite direction. That way, if we're doing those planks or push-ups or front squat, the tissue in our hands and our wrists has already seen some of these positions, and it's not like a shock to this area of the body. Okay, let's point the fingers now back towards you again. Again, whether you're on your desk or the floor, same concept applies. Now we're going to go 3 circles in one direction, and we'll go 3 in the opposite direction. Good. Now we are going to just shake them out. We can counter stretch this as well. So pulling the backs of your hands towards you just to get out of that super extended position. And now it should just allow us to reset where we started. Next is going to be this fascial release for the forearm. So we're going to get back into that same position, fingers facing you, palm or heel of the palm is down on the table. And we're going to take our opposite hand with our thumb pointing down to the ground, palm pointing forward. So we got that idea, thumb down, palm pointing forward. We're going to reach in behind the backside of this wrist. We're going to use our fingers to grab some tissue in the front of the wrist, and then we're going to start to just pull across and then release it all together. And then we're going to go back and reset, reach from in behind, grab with the fingertips, and we're going to pull that tissue across and relax. Let's do that 4 more times, just trying to find some intense spots, but we always want to release it each time so that we're not moving that fascia back and forth necessarily, but we're trying to improve the position of the forearm as we get into this extended position of the wrist. Let's do 1 more time. Okay, good. Shake that one out. Let's switch to the other side. Fingers back towards you. Thumb down, palm facing forward. Reach in behind. Grab with your fingers. Slide the tissue across. Release the hand. Reset. You can see how I'm kind of shifting my shoulders to help me create a little bit more of that rotation. I'm not just using my opposite hand to move that tissue, but I also want to create better external rotation, right? So that's what we're trying to get to, is improve this tissue positioning so that when we need to be, let's use the front squat as the example, in that front squat, the wrist can manage being in that position under load. Okay, good. Let's just kind of shake that out a little bit. Our 4th part now, we're going to bring our ball back into play, and we're going to focus on these extensor muscles on the back side of the arm. So we're going to put the ball down. We're going to start up and around the elbow, and we can use our other hand to help create down force into the ball. And then we're going to just work on sliding towards the wrist, pushing towards the elbow. Okay, just working back and forth for this one. And now it's the same concept as we did for the palm. We're sort of exploring around, trying to find some of those nasty hot spots. And then what I want you to focus on when you find them is just putting some down pressure into the ball. Like there for me is pretty intense. Breathing, don't forget to breathe. And then taking the hand through flexion and extension. Okay, so you can do that, 4, 5, 6 times. Until we start to feel that intensity go down. Make sure that you're breathing as you're going through this. It's super important. And then as it starts to chill out, find a new spot. Explore around a little bit. But basically where we're focused is all from the elbow, kind of down to our mid forearm, and all that muscle on the back side. These are all the muscles that flex the wrist up. So we can think about when we're in our front squat, that's going to be pretty active. Let's switch to the other side and do the same thing here. So we're starting up near the elbow. I'm going to pin the ball with our opposite arm, find that tissue and not the bone, and work on finding some hot spots. So we're just kind of dragging the ball along the arm. The ball's rolling, obviously, but we're just thinking about like pushing into the ball all the time, finding those kind of nasty spots. And then if we find one, then we're going to work through the wrist. So flexing the wrist up, extending the wrist, flexing, extending, okay? Getting some of that tissue to move. Basically what we're doing is we're pinning and pulling. So we're pinning the muscle and then we're lengthening it. So trying to get some more length out of those extensor muscles. Give us another 5 seconds or so, a couple more breaths. Okay, good, shake that out. So we can think about this too, right, is if you are someone who is working at a desk all the time, right, what position are our hands in constantly, right? Whether we're typing, using our mouse, we're using our phones, we're always in this position where the wrist is flat but the elbow is extended. So if we try to get into, for one, a push-up position, it has not been exposed to that range for a long period of time. So we go right from here into, you know, push-ups or burpees or something like that. That wrist is not going to really enjoy that. And then secondly, if we look at the areas where people have a lot of tension that they carry, right? Carpal tunnel, tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, these are all really common things, but we can address them here, focusing on the wrist and the thumb, where we see a lot of that carpal tunnel build up, and in the elbows on both sides. Now, let's go back to our A1 is going to be releasing the palm. So we're going to go through this whole series again. So ball on the table or on the floor, fingers down on your table or the floor. And now let's explore. Dig around into the palm, try to find some of those hot spots. And just like we did in the forearm, we're going to pin them, breathe on them. And if it's in your thumb, you can even think about flexing the thumb, right? Taking it through some ranges that it works in a lot of the time, especially if you are a texter, which most of us are, right? These thumbs get a lot more work than they were potentially designed to do. Okay, explore around, find maybe the outside of the hand is a good spot for you too. And let's switch sides. Switch to the left hand, same thing over here. And you gotta approach this like these could be two totally different hands, right? We could have different spots that are more intense on the right hand versus the left hand, especially if you're right or left-handed dominant, right? The hand gets used more often, so you might find that one side is more intense than the other, or you might find different areas are more intense than the other. So once you find those hot spots, pin it, explore around. Like if it's like I said, if it's the thumb, move the thumb around a little bit, move the wrist around a little bit, and just explore around through those hands. Okay, good. Next, we're gonna go through that wrist range of motion. So just put your ball away off to the side for now. We're gonna start with fingers pointing forward. We're gonna go 6, leaning out. Nice little wrist pop if you've heard that, little adjustment happening there. So we'll go 6 times, exploring into that range of extension. Breathing all the way through. 4, 5, 6. Now we're going to point the fingers back towards you, and we're going to rock away from the table. So we're going to sit back. 1. Always trying to keep your palms on the table the whole time. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we're going to point the fingers forward again, and we're going to go 3 circles clockwise. 3 circles counterclockwise. 3, and now we're going to point our fingers back towards us. This is Shelby. Shelby, say hi. 3 counterclockwise or clockwise, doesn't really matter. We're just going to do 3 in both directions. And let's go the opposite way. And good. Come on, out of that, we can counter stretch that, just kind of pulling the back of the hand towards you or the palm towards you. Both sides, just enough to kind of release that hand back to neutral. Next, we're going to go to that fascial release on the lower half of the arm. So we're going to point our fingers back towards us. We're going to point our opposite thumb down to the floor. And then we're going to grab tissue with the fingers and start to twist away from your midline. Okay, so we're thinking about trying to pull things outward. So let's do the same thing on the other, or keep going here. Sorry, keep going. 4 to 6 times. Just exploring, finding some of the different areas. Some areas might feel more tight, so maybe you do 2 in the same spot, or maybe you just work your way up and down the wrist. All right, now let's switch to the other side. Same concept. Opposite thumb is down, palm is forward, grabbing with the fingers and pulling away from your midline. So we're trying to pull outward. That is the dog drinking water, if you can hear that in the background. Sorry about that. Okay, So same idea here. Some areas might feel a little tighter than others. And remember that we're releasing every time. We're not working it back and forth. We're pulling in one direction, away from your midline, releasing and resetting. Good. Next, we're going to work on the forearm. Just got to get my ball. All right, now we're going to work on that trigger release on the back side of the arm. So same concept here. We're going to pin the arm down with the opposite hand. We're going to explore around until we find some nastiness. Maybe you find some nastiness right away, like I did there. And then pin and flex the wrist. So we're going to pull the wrist up or pull the knuckles up to the sky. And then explore. Find a new spot. Work that. Up and down, up and down. Don't forget to breathe. Explore around. Okay, good. Let's go to the other arm. Same concept. Pin. Explore. Ooh, found some good ones right away. Yep. And now let's work that wrist. Up, down, curling. Knuckles up to the ceiling. But these are pretty big pressure points. I think if you get an older brother or a mean uncle digs their thumb in there all the time, right? That is a pressure point. That's where it's a junction point. There's a lot of muscles that roll through that area. So we need to give it some attention, right? Try to release some of those muscles. And that's what we're doing here. For me right here, right now, this is pretty gross. Does not feel awesome, but I just gotta breathe on it. Nice deep breaths in. Take that wrist through flexion and extension until it starts to drop the intensity. Okay, good. So we can do this a third and even a fourth time, depending on how this is feeling and depending how much time you have in your day. But this is something that can be done very easily at your workstation, on the floor in the gym, or even on like a plyometric box. So do this before you have movements that require wrist extension. That include push-ups, planks, burpees, front squats, and then anything else that you could think of. Handstands, that's a good one as well. So use this before you do go into some of those movements. See if that helps improve your positions and allows you to move better. Thank you for joining the mobility series. Check out some of our other workouts. And this is, again, great to do before some of our other pump series and strength series.